What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Dear Mr. Fantasy. I am Nate, Mr. Fantasy Polvogt. I'm here every week, Thursday, usually noon Eastern. This week's a little bit different. We are here at 2 p.m. Eastern. I will be here to answer any questions you have pertaining to fantasy football. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be a trade. It can be some roster. It can be rookies. It can be absolutely anything, folks. It can be about formats. It does not matter. If you do have questions, make sure you are sending them over to the email of mailbag@rotounderworld.com. I will be checking that email regularly and make sure that I get your questions live on air for you folks. But like I'm going to do at the beginning of every show, we're just going to talk a little bit about some news around the league. We've got some things going on. We're going to start off with the news that the Jets are apparently very interested in Derek Carr. He is going to be visiting with the team should they not land Aaron Rodgers, who just came out of his 4-day darkness retreat. It kind of seems like they're going to go after Derek Carr. And you know what, folks? To me, it makes a lot of sense. And here's why. Derek Carr is a mediocre quarterback, sure, but you put tools around him and he's a player that can get you to the playoffs. The rest of that team, that defense is something he did not have in Las Vegas last season. It's an all-around better situation for a middle-of-the-road quarterback. I mean, folks, Trent Dilfer and Mark Rippon won Super Bowls. There's no reason Derek Carr can't take a good or great Jets team all the way. And I think that's the way that management is looking at this, and it'll save them some money. Derek Carr's not going to be an expensive option if they can't get Aaron Rodgers. Speaking of, Aaron Rodgers is out of his darkness retreat. We have heard absolutely nothing in regards to what he's going to do. He's probably only been out long enough to kind of think about it after being completely sensory deprived for 4 days. Can't imagine what that was like. It'll be interesting to see what his decision is. It's going to have a lot of impact around the league here, folks, because now that's going to have Green Bay either rolling with Jordan Love or looking for a new quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Another interesting move that broke this morning is Vance Joseph has taken the defensive coordinator position with the Denver Broncos. Why is this so interesting? Well, if you remember, Vance Joseph had a little stint as the head coach of the Denver Broncos a few years back, and it did not end well. He thought he deserved more time to turn the team around, but was ultimately let go in favor of Vic Fangio. We know how that worked out. But now Vance Joseph is back. And as a Denver fan, I will tell you, I hold no ill will towards the man. Bad head coach. But this isn't the first time Denver has gone back to a former head coach and brought them in as a coordinator, and it was successful last time. If you remember, Wade Phillips with that Super Bowl winning defense that was absolutely phenomenal. Broncos fans, let's hope that it works out the same way this time and this team turns it around in a season. There's still a lot to be seen in Denver, but this is a positive move for a franchise that needs it. They need a spark, and I think Vance Joseph is a guy to keep this defense rolling. All right, folks, that's about all I've got for news. Not a whole lot going around this time of year. Jamie in the chat saying, "What's up, Nate?" Jamie, thank you so much for tuning in. You know I appreciate seeing you here. And we'll actually start off with one of your questions, Jamie, that I had come in. Do you prefer third-round reversal in Superflex leagues? What are the benefits and disadvantages of the third-round reversal? You know, Jamie, it's an interesting thing because if you're in the middle, it doesn't really matter. Superflex, one quarterback, it makes no difference. For me, personally, I like to be in that middle. I'm a fifth, sixth, seventh pick guy, regardless of reversal. Most leagues use the reversal outside of rookie drafts. I don't love it if I'm on an end because if you're that first pick, you get one pick and then you see so much come off the board before it comes around. And then, boom, you just kind of get skipped there with that third round reversal. It's not my favorite, but I can understand why people do it. The benefit is it definitely helps that first pick or that 12th pick. It comes back around. Look, everybody has their preferences. And if you're a commissioner, you need to be having league votes on these kinds of things because there are some people who do have a preference, unlike me, who I just kind of roll with it because leagues are leagues, right? All right, folks, we're going to move on to the next question. I got this one from Brad Bolt out there in Australia. Is there a team that Robert Woods could go to and make him worth acquiring? This is a good question. Now, if you didn't know, he was released by the Tennessee Titans this week. It looks like they're clearing a lot of cap space ahead of the draft. This Tennessee team is likely in rebuild mode, even though we don't like that word as a fan of a team or of the players on the team, especially if you have them rostered in Dynasty. However, folks, it's happening. Now, Robert Woods is moving on. He will be with a new team next season, but is he really worth rostering? I mean, we really have to look at what he did last season. He was wildly inconsistent. He was the wide receiver PPR 59. He was targeted 91 times, but he only converted 53 of those into catches. Now, he was in a run-heavy offense in Tennessee. They have Derrick Henry. They're going to run the rock. Could he be a little bit more relevant with the new team? Possibly. But we're going to cap it here because he is no more than a wide receiver 3 going into 2023. If you're taking him any higher than that in a draft, or you're acquiring him for pieces that are higher than that, absolutely do not do it. Robert Woods is 30 years old. He'll be 31 next season. Does he have anything left in the tank? This is a guy that relied on shiftiness and speed. And after injuries and age, is he that receiver anymore? I'm saying no. If you have him rostered and there's someone in your league that might be interested in acquiring him, I would definitely reach out and see if you can deal him, see if you can get rid of him. That's the best move you can make if you're a Robert Woods manager right now. Because honestly, guys, I don't think he has anything left in the tank. I see him landing in a place like, well, let's say Kansas City, where they let Juju go, they acquire a wide receiver or 2 in the draft, and they're looking for one more veteran presence with MVS in that offense. But he won't be fantasy relevant beyond a wide receiver 3, maybe a spot flex play if he picks up some traction during the season. But no, Robert Woods, do not go out and acquire him no matter where he lands. Keep your hands off, folks. Next question, also from Brad. Dalton Schultz a buy without signing for a team, or is he team dependent? Unfortunately, pretty much every tight end in this league, outside of Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, are going to be team dependent because some teams use tight ends more in blocking schemes and some teams like to use them more in wide receiver and like passing schemes. You're never going to know. And if Schultz lands on a team, what's a good example here? We'll say Green Bay. Green Bay doesn't use tight ends. They used, why I can't think of his name right now, I don't know, Tonyan. They used Robert Tonyan somewhat. He had the one boom season, but that was all touchdown dependent. And I fear that that's what Schultz will be wherever he lands. Now, if he ends up on a team where I could see him doing well in Buffalo, if they decided to move on from Dawson Knox, that would be interesting. But otherwise, I wouldn't acquire him now. Wait to see where he goes, see where he lands, see if it's a team that will actually use him in the passing game. And if not, you might want to move off of him. All right, folks, we're going to move to our next question. This is coming from Craig Ruth. Thank you, Craig, for the question. Much appreciated. If you're in a full-blown rebuild and had to trade the 101, what sort of realistic return would you be looking for? Plain and simple, I'm looking for that marquee top-tier player. I want a Justin Jefferson. I want a Josh Allen. I want a Patrick Mahomes. Whatever position you are severely lacking at, you go out and you fix that position with the 101. But we're not stopping there. If you're going to go get a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen, and this person is willing to give you a little bit more, do it. Go for it. But you need to get a top-tier player at your most needy position for that 101. And it's not even a question because with the 101, you can fix your team. But if you want to move it, make sure you're getting someone who's going to be an impact player for your roster absolutely immediately. All right, folks, we're going to move on to our next question. This is from Jamie. Can you see an outcome where Jamir Gibbs is looked at as a top 5 running back next year, similar to Walker and Hall this year? You know, this is an interesting question. This is an interesting running back class. I think there was a lot of hype for it heading into the season, and a lot of that hype has kind of faded. Bijan Robinson is obviously the RB1. I have a feeling that he's going to end up in Philly and make an immediate impact. They'll take him with that 10th pick because realistically, what else do they need? They need to replace Miles Sanders because he hasn't been effective in a lot of high pressure and critical situations for the team. We saw him just not really used in the Super Bowl. They're going to go after Breece Hall. Jamir Gibbs, I think, falls out of the first round, but depending on where he lands, I can see him making an instant impact. I have a feeling that Buffalo is going to be looking for another running back. If they do actually get Jamir Gibbs, he could be an instant impact player. He could be an impact player in Carolina should they choose to go after another running back. Despite some of the comments from Deuce Staley earlier today, he's a guy that could make a huge impact for that team. Houston wouldn't be a terrible landing spot in tandem with Dameon Pierce. but it's really hard to say. It's hard to say now without seeing where these guys are going to land and where they're going to play to know really if they have the capability of being a top 5 back. And that even goes for Bijan Robinson, because what if he doesn't land in Philly, or he does land in Philly, but it continues to be more of the Jalen Hurts show? It's hard to say at this point in the offseason, but it's definitely a possibility. Anything is possible. It's definitely within the realm of outcomes. All right, folks, we're going to move on to my next question. This is also from Jamie. What are your thoughts on Kyler Murray's 2023 season and going forward? Are you buying him in Dynasty? I traded the 104 and 211 for Murray in a super flex. Thought that was a steal. Well, Jamie, if you needed a quarterback and you were willing to give up those picks, you could give up those picks. I'm okay with this trade. But we don't know when we're going to see Kyler Murray next season. He's probably not going to be week 1, 2, 3, or 4. We hope to see him week 5 or week 6, but that might even be too early for him, especially because he's such a mobile quarterback and it was a brutal knee injury. However, he could be an impact player down the stretch for you. If you have someone that you know you can confidently play those first 4 to 5 weeks before he comes back, then I'm okay with this. However, if you're leaning on him to be your QB1 out of the gate, I really don't like this trade. And I do have some concerns about Kyler Murray on now. It's going to be a more defensive-minded team. Are they going to have the ball as much? Are they going to be able to keep it on the ground as much with the new coach? Is he going to have the weapons? Are they going to move off of DeAndre Hopkins this season? He's going to have Marquise Brown. He's going to have Rondale Moore. But is that enough? And we've seen Kyler Murray fall off towards the end of seasons. He was a QB 19 last season, which isn't bad considering he missed so much time, only played in 11 games. But a lot of that was the rushing and the rushing touchdowns. He threw 7 interceptions last season, which was an improvement over the previous season where he's had 10, 12, and 12, but he was on pace to throw more. I think we've seen a regression with Kyler Murray that concerns me a little bit. Now, it's still worth paying up for him to get him because the potential is there that he could just absolutely go off. But I also worry about, does he care? Does he care at all about the NFL, or is he just in it for a paycheck? We've heard from the team that he's in it for the right reasons, and I really hope he is. And I hope to see him do well. And for your sake, Jamie, I hope he does well on your roster. This is probably a trade I wouldn't have made at this point. I would have used that 104 to get a quarterback, get probably Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson. One of those guys will be around at that 4th pick. Obviously, it's 4 quarterbacks. But you got to do you, and it's probably the best thing for your team. Go for it. There we go. All right, folks. We've got one. Nope, we do not have any more questions. I have run 13 minutes. We have no more questions. That's not a big deal. If you are in the chat and you've got a question, please drop it in. I'll read it on air here. However, I'm going to talk about a few things that I noticed doing a mock draft last night that could impact the NFL, our rookie drafts and our dynasty drafts coming up this season. The first one we mocked, it was very interesting that we mocked Will Levis to the Raiders. Now, this might sound crazy, but this is a team that needs a quarterback. Now, in order to get Levis, we mocked them trading up to the number 3 pick to get ahead of Indy, who we know wants Will Levis, possibly. Now, if the Raiders get Will Levis, how does this affect his value in Dynasty? Do we see him jump up rookie draft boards? Probably, because he's going to be on an offense with presumably Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. Is there a better situation for a rookie with weapons that they could go to? Not many. There aren't going to be many teams that are going to have a Devontae Adams and a Josh Jacobs that are going to have to roll out a rookie quarterback. I really like this for the Raiders, and if it happens, I'm probably going to target Will Levis in my quarterback-needy leagues. Not as high as he might go, but I might actually be willing to trade up to get Levis. I think he could be an impact player in year 1 in Las Vegas. Now that you think I'm crazy, let's get crazier. I'm going to talk about who I think the Chiefs are going to take with their last pick. This is an interesting one. I think it's going to be Tank Dell out of Houston. And here's why. He's undersized, much like Tyreek Hill, but he is a speedster, just like Tyreek Hill. He'd fit well into an offense that just kind of lacked that explosiveness, which is a funny thing to say considering that they won the Super Bowl this year. But they really won that in spite of a horrible wide receiver room. Juju was up and down all season. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's a middle-of-the-road wide receiver that they incredibly overpaid for. Now, they've got Sky Moore, but we didn't really see a whole lot out of Sky Moore last season. We saw more usage in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl, which was a good thing to see if you're a Sky Moore manager. But I really think they want that more explosive player at wide receiver that can will those big plays into existence, much like Tyreek Hill did his entire career in Kansas City and last season in Miami. Now, they don't have a lot of needs. They have some stuff they need to do on defense, but I really think that Andy Reid wants to give Patrick Mahomes all the tools to keep this offense rolling through the 2023 season. They're going to need to get more explosive at wide receiver. And while they could try and do that through free agency, it's going to be less expensive for them as a team to do it in the draft. And if they get Tank Dell with that 31st pick, they've made a quick instant upgrade at wide receiver that'll make their offense a little bit more explosive. And it'll take some of the pressure off of Mahomes trying to will things to happen. Plus, it's going to free up money in free agency for them to shore up their defense. That was a liability most of the season that forced them to score and score and score. And just imagine if this team doesn't have to score, they can run the ball a little bit more. Isaiah Pacheco becomes a better asset in fantasy. And if they go after a running back in this draft, someone I like for them is Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. That makes him even more valuable as well. And he's going to be a late round Dynasty rookie draft acquisition. We've got a question in the chat. This is from Jamie. What are your thoughts on Jalen Hyatt? Boom or bust? I want him on the Chiefs. So this is interesting. We mocked him to the Chiefs in one mock. It seemed a little bit high, but again, he's that explosive speed. He is that Tyreek Hill type of wide receiver. I could absolutely see them doing this in the draft. It would make sense to me. Look, plain and simple, I guess I've made it pretty clear. The Chiefs are going to go after wide receiver help in the draft. Free agency is where they're going to fix their holes on defense. It's either going to be Tank Dell or it's going to be Jalen Hyatt. Either way, whichever way they decide to go, I think it's a good move for the Chiefs. Now, the other interesting thing in this draft that I mocked, and I'm kind of a homer. As you see, I've got my Steelers jersey behind me. I really want to see Jordan Addison out of USC end up in Pittsburgh. He had his Biletnikoff season in 2021 at the University of Pittsburgh with Kenny Pickett. Can you imagine those two paired back up and the level of deep threat he would give Kenny Pickett? We know Pickett can get the ball downfield. He was having a hard time getting it down the field last season. The Steelers are going to address their offensive line in free agency. I'm not concerned about that. Mike Tomlin doesn't just sit on his laurels and hope for the best. He's always looking to improve his team. They shore up that line, and you've got Jordan Addison as a wide receiver too in that offense, because I truly believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to move on from Deontay Johnson. I don't know why they wouldn't. Why would they spend the money to keep him around when they can get Addison in the draft? They've already got George Pickens. They've got Pat Freiermuth. Addison is the complement that they need in this offense to those other weapons. He can stretch the field, and I think he can get Pittsburgh back into contention in the AFC North. Maybe I'm crazy, but this is a team that I think is going to surprise a lot of people and may win the division and could be a force in the playoffs next season. I don't think they're going to go super deep, but don't be surprised if guys like Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens are valuable dynasty assets by the end of the season, folks. Maybe I'm out of my mind. They don't call me Dear Mr. Fantasy for nothing. I watch a lot of football, and I'm just telling you what I see here, folks. All right. I'm sure you're tired of listening to me talk. I'm going to get out of here, folks. Please, please, please make sure you get your questions in for next week. Mailbag at rotounderworld.com. You can find me at Nate Polvogt on Twitter. Send me messages there, DM, at me on Twitter, Facebook. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Folks, it has been a pleasure, and I look forward to chatting with you all next week. And until then, I'm out.